Yeah, the first reaction is often, do I believe it? Is it true? Now, there are usually two camps of people on different sides of this subject, the naysayers and non-believers, and those who either know or sense that it's real because they've had their own intuitive experience, or they know someone, perhaps a family member, who has this gift or talent. The second reaction that many people have is a desire for proof. Now, the funny thing about this desire is that no matter how much proof one does receive, and the more you connect with your intuition, the more you will see that it is amazing and real, people still have a tendency to embrace doubt and disbelief. This, unfortunately, is part of the human condition, but it's also because intuition is intangible. You cannot measure it. It's not the same as you would something physical or mundane. Although you can feel, sense, or even know it, similar to love, if and when we ask or demand for proof, it has a very interesting way of slipping right out of our grasp. So that being said, one of the first things we need to do to cultivate our intuition is to learn how to trust ourselves when we receive an insight or a message, regardless of whether or not we can see any physical or logical proof. Intuition is about knowing. It's not about thinking. And in a world when thinking is highly regarded, we can often talk ourselves out of listening to what we know to be true. This week, practice trust. We do this by developing a strong sense of worthiness. Remind yourself that you are a divine being and that life is miraculous. Being able to receive is especially important not only in our lives, but also in regard to developing our intuition. But no one really teaches us how to receive well. Of course, we've been taught the basics. If someone gives you something, be grateful and say thank you. But something about this lesson has made the transaction feel uncomfortable. It's as though the act of receiving is somehow less valuable than the act of giving, and the receiver often feels indebted. For a moment, I just want to make the distinction between taking and receiving. They are not the same. Receiving has to do with being open, available, and receptive. We have to be strong to receive because receiving can feel overwhelming. By the way, these qualities are also essential in developing intuition. Receptivity is key. But many people believe that it is better to give than to receive. But truly, giving and receiving are two sides of the same coin. When this isn't understood or honored equally, we can get into trouble. Our lives and our relationships can easily become unbalanced. When we receive well, we give a gift to the giver as well as to ourselves. This week, notice if you have room to receive. How often do you open your arms out wide? How quickly do you become uncomfortable when someone gives you something? Does giving make you feel more in control? You know, every day we breathe in and out. The sun comes up and goes down. Both parts are equally important. Some people are so uncomfortable receiving that they never stop giving until they feel exhausted or angry. This week, practice being open and receptive and see what life brings. Actually, it wasn't really a question. It was more like a smack, an unexpected whack that was meant to stop us dead in our tracks. The subtext being, how dare you be so big, shiny, bright, and uninhibited? Many of us heard it for the first time when we were quite young. There we were, being the star in our own movie, when someone, usually a close relative, parent, or teacher, decided we needed some intervention and flung this sentence at us like a shoe. Were we really too big for our britches? Did we really cross over the line? Or was our light just too bright? Whatever the answers are to the questions, we need to contemplate them deeply. Self-consciousness can be learned early on and usually from the people that we love the most. Our individuality is not always embraced or seen in the best light. It can become easy to forget who we are and what we really love. When our light within becomes covered by shame and inhibition, it becomes difficult to see our true self. And when we no longer recognize ourselves, it's easy to lose our way. Worthiness is one of the most important qualities for us to own. It is a major key for attracting love, prosperity, good health, and wonderful relationships. When we have a good sense of self-worth, outside opinions and judgments no longer hold power over us. We can then take back our life and live with enthusiasm and greatness. Anyone who has ever been near a young child has experienced the importance and value of celebrating the seemingly small successes in life. A child trying to take its first step is usually met with clapping, joy, smiles, encouragement, and expressions of delight. We are also inclined to chant phrases like, come on, you can do it, keep going, good girl, good boy. In fact, it is often this enthusiastic support that helps the child keep going, earnestly delighted in the attention and belief that we are bestowing upon them. We somehow realize that each seemingly small act that is achieved is important and will help move them to their next step. These small acts are called wins, and we experience them every day. A win is an acknowledgement that we have done or experienced something good. If someone smiles at us on the street, it's a win. No matter how seemingly small the accomplishment is, embrace it. Try not to underestimate it. Many people like to focus on and share the parts of their lives that aren't working. Instead, choose to see what is right and what is perfect, what has worked in your favor and what you have gained. Then walk in that direction. This week, notice and honor your everyday wins. Watch what happens when you support yourself with love and enthusiasm. Similar to watching a small child grow and develop, there is something about the recognition of a win that brings courage, contentment, and good fortune our way. As we grow older, if we are not careful, we can lose our way to what is special and meaningful in our lives, especially in regard to our purpose in life. It is our childhood dreams that have a way of pointing us in the right direction. Just as children in a storybook may need to leave a trail of breadcrumbs to find their way back home, we too need a way to retrieve the dynamic parts of ourselves. Try to remember back when you were a child. What books and movies did you love or enjoy? What were the titles and the storyline? Which character did you relate to? What talent or talents did they have? Look at their strengths and their predicaments. Take some time and contemplate the story, character, and subject matter, and notice the similarities between their life and your own. Many times they offer clues to hidden aspects of ourselves and our soul's purpose. Now, if you can't remember that far back, then try to remember your last favorite book or movie, or remember what you loved to do as a child. Each time we revisit these stories, we are able to discover new and interesting insights about ourselves. There's a reason that we remember these books and movies. They speak to us. They remind us of who we are and what we love. As soon as we begin this process of exploration, the healing automatically begins. Our path reappears, and we begin to remember.
Great.
I thought that was good. I think the fudge was okay.
Yeah.
The slower pace was nice. I don't know.
Yeah, I like that a lot better.
Are you
Good
comfortable
call.
with that?
Well, animals have a way of moving us out of our heads and into our hearts. And for many of us, it can be one of the purest relationships that we have. They don't judge us or care what we have accomplished. They also help us stay in present time. Whether we dream about them or they show up in our lives, animals can give us clues and help us on our journey. The American Indians were very aware of the powerful messages that animals could give to us. By watching the behavior of certain animals, we can learn what we may need to do in life. For example, an eagle gives us perspective. It's the bird that flies closest to the heavens. So if you should see an eagle or dream of one, perhaps the universe is reminding you to become more detached from a particular situation or to take a higher point of view. Take a moment and notice what animals you keep seeing or which animals you are fond of. And also look around your home and see if you have any animals on pictures, figurines, or even on your stationery. Some animals are not fun to see, but they can still have a message, whether it is a snake, which represents transformation, or a dog that reminds us of loyalty. Animals can have a huge and powerful impact on our lives. It is also a rare and auspicious quality to master. When we listen, we invite insight and intuition. Our minds like to stay active, so it takes a certain amount of finesse to quiet it so that new insights can emerge. When we listen with gentle awareness, our inner wisdom becomes engaged. We stop trying to prove our own point of view and we become free to receive information. Listening doesn't necessarily mean that we have to agree with what we hear, but for a few moments, we allow ourselves to connect with another person. We step away from our own thoughts and feelings, and our minds become free. Listening is a gift that we can give to ourselves and to others. Many of us have experienced the wonderful sensation of having someone really hear us. To be heard and not judged can be extremely comforting. Take a few moments and ask yourself, do you listen gently, or do you find that you are perched, ready to respond? Can you stop the chatter in your own mind, or are your opinions so important and so loud that you can barely allow the other person to take a breath before you jump into the conversation? We need to know our value to have a strong sense of self, to really listen. If we don't have a strong sense, it's hard to hear. Once we are aware of our inner greatness, listening becomes easier and we can participate more fully in the exchange of ideas and possibilities.